very large opinions when it comes to how to play the game, right? And Chovy
of Viego, right? Generally it's Lee. I don't mind Viego personally.
I think it's evolved to be Lee Sin.
Yeah.
I think in the LEC playoffs that we watched a few hours ago, I think the Viego priority was still up there. I don't know whether I agree with it. However, T1 are going to, as Trundle and Viego both locked in. Of course, Trundle a flex pick, especially for T1. So Viego could be going anywhere, Trundle could be going anywhere, and we'll see where T1 decide to put them after the draft is settled. Harmolife Esports now probably considering a bottom lane. And I'd like to put some carry potential down there, but no, it's going to be LeBlanc picked up, as Chovy's really taking it to Faker here, and now Camille as well. Some split push options for Harmolife Esports, and Morgan throwing the gauntlet, but obviously Faker now just has the Lissandra access if he would like it. We saw this work out so beautifully yesterday. Picking LeBlanc into fly though, that's a travesty. That is not allowed.
No.
Faker as well has played an extraordinary amount of Lissandra. We know how deep his champion pool is just in general, and this matchup is not great for the LeBlanc. So Harmolife Esports sort of walking head first into that Lissandra pick, is now T1 going to take away some of Vista's supports.
It's also the benefit of having played for so long that like basically every champion has been meta at some point. So like, yeah, I played that for like 2 weeks in 2014, I'll be fine.
Yeah, imagine having like 600 hours worth of muscle memory on every possible mid lane champion. Oh, welcome to Faker, everyone.
That'd be great. I do love the direction though here from Harmolife, because this is a draft that kind of beckons you, invites you to play very proactive. Now into the T1 comp, not necessarily the easiest, because they do have in Trundle and Viego two very strong characters that really like skirmishing, finding early plays, with supposedly that Trundle going towards carrier, but there's of course some flex potential. You can also go Trundle jungle, Viego top is still a possibility. But Lee Sin and the LeBlanc are a very old combination with insane amounts of mobility, skirmishing power, and an uncanny knack for deleting champions off the map. Now Lissandra specifically, not gonna happen, but if there is a Viego just randomly wandering about the river and he gets found rather by one of the two, thank you, then he gets blown up in seconds. Okay, wow, Ezreal. With things like the Varus still available, Kalista also not getting picked up, and I really like this from T1.
Why do I feel like Kai'Sa is going to be picked?
Yeah, I mean, Kai'Sa's great.
I'm a bit frightened.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Kai'Sa these days. Ashe, I am a big fan of, being able to scout out exactly where Ona's going to be. That's a Lulu being hovered, which is an interesting one. Looking to try and counter out some of the danger of the frozen tomb coming through from Faker. I don't mind it, trying to keep people alive. Also, adds a lot of power to that bottom side of the map as well. Not going to be tanky, not going to be able to utilize that subjugate all that well against what Harmalife have put together, because no one's a tank. No one at all.
Oh, top lane Kench,
Is
finally.
it happening?
No, of course it's not happening.
Yeah, no, that's not what we do here. And,
It's going to be now.
I think Na would make the most sense when it comes to T1 and Canna just in general.
Yeah.
I liked all of the other hovers a lot more. However, we will just get the Na, so no need to learn anything new here today, ladies and gentlemen. It is the classic Camille versus Na matchup. And Na should have a fair bit of pushing power in the early stages until Camille naturally takes over.
Yeah, it's a matchup that I'm not a fan of picking it into the Camille specifically, but it is comfort. It's something that T1 has done in the past. It's Kana's 100% go-to if the Jace is not banned. So it's an understandable choice here. I agree with you. Would have liked a lot of the other choices a lot as well. But we don't get that. We get Na, and Na does still provide an incredible amount of team fighting power. And with the Ezreal probably fine against the Lulu and the Ashe. There's the distinct possibility. Free up carrier, try and counteract that dueling potential that Chovy and Wheeler are gonna have. Look around the map, which we know carrier loves to do, enable other lanes with the pillar. And I wouldn't mind some early skirmishing with the Viego as well. We've seen in both LEC and LCS. Real Viego gameplay.
Oh yeah.
Was a lot of examples of why the champion is still as high, and the T1 composition is always going to be relevant, right? I think that the amount of pick potential, 6C and pop-off between Viego and Ezreal is always going to be a threat. Only thing, little lack of AP damage if you go too late.
Yeah, I think so too. Although Ezreal does offer a little bit himself, and the Frozen Thralls, ladies and gentlemen, never forget what can happen if one pick is made by T1. It is absolutely terrifying, especially with a Viego on the map. All of those resets. I love this combo a whole lot. I've been advocating for it all season long. Every time the Lissandra is picked, I get a little bit more excited about Viego.
I still feel like the perfect name for this combo has eluded us. Like, there's got to be something that just immediately makes it, yes, of course. And we have the opportunity, right? Because this is the final day of the split.
Yeah, I don't know whether Lissandra works or...
No.
Yeah.
But I know you, Atlas. I'm sure you will be able to figure something out. And it gives us the opportunity to look at some of the early game possibilities that we have. Because the interesting thing about the Lulu is that, of course, it skills incredibly well. But outside of the laning phase, it doesn't provide as much. It will give you a lot of early game pushing power, which is nice. So that level 1 from Deft and Vista really strong, allow you to take early priority and put some pressure. But we also see Guma has gone for teleport. This is 100% I'm just going to sit in farm lane while we try and play around the rest of the map. And I think it also comes down to what extent Faker can find Prowl in that lane and roam to his possible sides, as expect that, especially that bot lane gonna be pushed in a lot. Kana early game will be fine, but post 6 has to play a lot more respectful when he doesn't have his Mega Bar, as, yep, Deft and Vista taking early control of this lane.
Yeah, well, have a look at level 1 Ashe. Definitely a lot of power, and has a Lulu now, so it's going to be even worse for T1 in theory. So level 1 priority certainly here, is Deft really kind of hoping that he gets a few of these minions. I believe was able to grab a few, but didn't see the money for the second one. As Vista just looking to try and make Gumayusi and Carrier's life a living hell. And that's what Lulu is very, very good at, as Kana gets a bit of a hop out. This is more of a doo-doo pick on the top side of the map for Morgan. I'm very interested in how he's actually going to play more of the aggressive split-pushing style, as he is more of the tank player, you know, he is more of the team fighter. And, you know, Camille can definitely team fight, but does need a few more strings to the bow to really reach her full potential. As Chovy and Faker going pretty ham against one another. You can see 9-15 showing the power of the Lissandra into the LeBlanc matchup. Doesn't always work out, but certainly is considered a very good pick, as close to an 80% win rate here for Faker on the champion. 15-4. Yeah. He's done this before, ladies and gentlemen.
It's been a while, and oh, look at his pathing. Wheeler, if he can. I wouldn't have minded to see them go for some early aggression with Ona also pathing towards bot side. And this is really nice, actually, right? Because Ona started bot and then pathed out towards top, has come back just to make sure that Deft and Vista, they didn't crash that huge wave into the turret and then went for a very aggressive play. Don't actually know if they can go for this, as I think they might have to fall for this one. Faker, though, has Prio, is going to be on his way. Early skirmish is a little risky.
Chovy coming on in as well, though, and they do have control vision of that brush, so that will mean Humble Life Esports get on over here, and I think the bot priority really giving them some access there.
Yeah, and you expect this. I don't think as owner you ever actually have to...
Will connect as Will is coming in, but Owner is already here. Faker claws his way out. Now Owner looking for Willa, but no, not going to work out. Just Chovy. That's not the real one, as they are just going to back away from one another. Pretty similar health trades, but Willa getting the brunt of most of the danger. Will be relatively low. Finds the chains here as Chovy, so we're going to do a fair bit of damage here to Faker, who does need to be a bit careful. Choose through another charge of that corrupting potion.
And here we see the benefit of those early prio lanes. Yes, Lissandra is really good at shutting down LeBlanc, but Faker used his teleport to roam, so had prio there, but is now going to have to back if he wants to stay safe. Did cancel that, and with Willow also moving up, wonder if they're looking for an opportunity. Faker's low.
Yeah, Chovy didn't have distortion, so isn't going to be throwing himself underneath this turret, as Willa is still here to back Chovy up. I like this protection. I like the fact that Chovy can now play around some jungle protection here.
Yeah, it's really nicely done, actually, I think, from both sides. Because Ona has also just been walking around the map, and a 4-man dive on bot side. That's the aggression I want to see from Hanwha.
They have full information, even awarding this brush over here as well, as Carrier and Gumayushi can move away from this turret, but regardless of that, they will still lose a fair bit of experience. As Guma getting taken down relatively low. Vista not even going to tank a turret shot, as Ona is pulled over here. And it's just a bit of health and not actually too much to be denied here from T1. Armalite playing very defensively.
And I like that. You know that with Ona there, you can't really go for that. Even the teleport not being available, a 3 versus 4 with all the summoners still available, the exhaust there, and a Viego that can turn a skirmish around in seconds if even only a single person dies. You don't actually get to cash in on a dive. However, you have found yourself a double scuttle lead for your lead. Vista and Deft have been able to build up a fairly big experience and CS lead, and at this point it's a wave, but it's still something that I think Hanwha Life are showing here that they haven't shown us in a while, and once this actually gets picked up, Deft will be as far ahead as he was previously. Yeah. And that is finding early prio and then actually playing around it, right? Chovy moving out of his lane very early on. Willa also coordinating, getting the scuttle, looking for a dive very early, seeing Owner backing off. Just take the crab, walk toward the top side of the map, do the same. Go bot again to try and dive, and I'm loving this early proactive look from Hanwha.
Vista's diving on in here. He's got the Ignite onto Faker. Not as much healing from the Frozen Tomb as the Claw comes out. He flashes. Oh, Pix, can you help? Nope. Not going to be enough there, as Faker's even going to eat some popcorn chicken on the way out.
Chicken almost got him, Atlas.
You gotta be careful. We've seen them be very, very angry in the past.
Oh, vengeful chicken. I remember the bomb delivery chicken.
Yes.
That was a beautiful moment, and the look of Hanwha Life early on there is great, and T1 is playing very aggressively, which I think with this comp is fine. This is not a comp that needs to get a lot of stuff done early on, right? It's about weathering the storm, and then post 6 you have a lot more opportunities available. Now Owner is Heartbreaker. Faker, once his ultimate is off cooldown, can set up a lot more plays. And obviously bot side, you're just looking to get Guma to that 2-item point. But I'm just pleasantly surprised by how well Hanwha Life is playing here.
Yeah, me too.
It's a really good look.
I'm also excited about the fact that they have they have picked for bottom lane priority as well in this Lulu, trying to get some lane dominance, which is, you know, a way that Deft has always been very good at playing. Well, maybe not always, not necessarily back in the Samsung Blue days, but since his time in the LPL, certainly has developed to be a very aggressive laning AD carry. And that certainly works when you can put on this extra pressure with your Enchanter support down here, especially onto something like the Trundle Ezreal that doesn't have a lot of power early. As Owner's going to get spotted. Willa is here as well. Full information given to our top laners. A bit of a boulder comes through. Owner just slinks around in the mist, and nothing's really going to come of this one.
Neither team wanting to commit to a very volatile 2v2. Note also Deft going for the Swifties here. And I think that's really nice on a couple of levels. In the lane, with the Lulu, obviously you outrange in terms of volley. You need to be careful with the Mystic shots, but that's a lot easier to stay away from. You get the additional attack speed from your Lulu anyway.
Yep.
and allowing Deft to move forward with much more impunity, to have to be less afraid of any possible pillars. It's just incredibly nice, right? And the slows that are going to come through from T1 are going to have the same amount of impact as we are gearing up towards the fight. Everyone rotating over. Gumayusi not yet, but he does have teleport available, so T1 can choose to all in here, or can choose to just let Guma farm.
Chovy is going to have to deal with this trophy for a moment, as Vista has now joined his jungler. Chovy now getting out of the area as Deft turns up. Arrow's going to connect, even though the flash did go over the wall. Carrier is looking to get out of there as Naya. Big Naba. Just a little bit of a stun onto Willa, though, as now the rest of T1 all clumped together. No one has claimed this, as finally HLE will go down, and now Harm Alive. Are you going to start a fight? The chains connect, but they are broken, and T1 just walk away.
And once that flash had come through, I would have much rather seen T1 hold that teleport and just let Guma shove, right? At that point, I think you realize, okay, guys, this might not work out. We might not actually get the opportunity that we're looking for. We might not get the 5v5 fight that we so clearly want. And in that scenario, not investing the teleport is going to make you feel a lot better. Saving grace is that the wave state here is really, Guma was really nicely left by Guma, meaning it's going to shove into him. He's going to be able to pick up most of it, whereas Deft has now lost his CS lead. So it's not the end of the world, and I understand the call because it's a split-second decision. Khan had a full Naba, might have been calling, guys, I might have an angle here to go for a multiple-man stun. And now Gumayusi should be even on farm once this wave is picked back up, but you do give up the Rift Herald, and especially if Hanwha Live use the power that they have available to dive maybe a mini Gnar, and then get a first Turtle Blood, it's still going to be a nice early game here for Hanwha.
No, I completely agree, and I think that you know, leveraging your advantage as Deft as more of a utility AD carry is a very intelligent idea as well. Play around that in the early game, try and feed as much power to your Camille as possible, who does require a fair bit of investment to get going. As you can see, currently, Gnar has about a 100 gold advantage or something, but nothing to write home about, and it is about 200 gold the lead here for Hanwha Live. So still waiting for any team to grab any meaningful advantage this game, but I think that HLE should be a good avenue for that if Hanwha Live Esports use it intelligently. We can see right now Willa running around with it. See where he decides to lay that one down as Vista trying to get a bit of damage onto Gumayusi as Willa starts off this Drake as well, as both neutral objectives in control of Hanwha Live Esports for now.
And I think the dynamic in this game is really interesting, as it will be the Ocean Drake going over with the Prio on bot side and Owner on top side of the map. Not a lot to be done about that, unfortunately. And again, using that great pushing power that you pointed out earlier that is available to Deft and Vista. But considering many Gnar, and there is Owner in the general vicinity, but not actually going to go for anything. Because for T1, you want a 2-0 here. Like, you want as badly as possible. Get the 2-0 and then just hope that Genji can do it. You know, you become the biggest Genji fan for the next series. But you do need a 2-1 here if you want to make your odds the highest possible.
Ooh, Arrow gets a flash out of Deft getting feisty down here.
And that was in a 1v1.
Advantage on the health bar as well. And yeah, you're exactly right. Arcane Shift once again very defensively, and Deft don't need no support to put this kind of pressure on.
No, Vista's just chilling.
That's the Swifty advantage, dude. That's what it is. Swifty advantage.
It's, at this point in the game, Ashe is just so much stronger, right? Because you can see the power that the volley provides, and the unfortunate thing about playing into Ashe, and it always has been, is that if Ashe decides that you are going to trade, then you will, right? There's not a lot to be done about it due to the nature of Frost Shot and Volley. And as an Azrael at this point in the game, you don't even have your Sunderer. You don't have anywhere close to a actual amount of damage. So you don't want to trade at all. But Ashe says, we will trade. So then you are forced to, and we see Guma earlier on there just trying to get out, oversteps his boundaries. Well, is there?
That's a big Gnar from Canna into the wall. We'll see who's going to win out on this one, as there comes the ultimate from Morgan, but the Viego's going to come through. Some low health bars already, as it's a disengaged kick. And the hook shot is going to get Morgan back underneath his turret, but T1 do reign supreme. The Rift Herald still not put down, as it actually just, sort of timed out, but was about to. And instead is put down in a place where it's not really going to get too much value, as Faker not going to collect his Aftershock there, unfortunately, as Chovy still putting on the pressure here. Faker will be able to get himself out. The teleport on the Shelly.
That's so good. Because I was ready to call it for Shelly. Now Operation Escort Shelly to the turret. Can we do it?
These are the type of quests that are the most boring, but if it works out, it's going to be very valuable as Canna almost has that Narbar back up again, and Shelly is going to be exterminated. T1 denies so much of that extra control that Hanwha had, and some of those cracks are now showing.
And that is nice. But still, you're getting pushed in everywhere. The existence of Owner on the top side of the map is able to mitigate the impact of Shelly. Doesn't actually charge into the turret, and it's nice for Kana. But it also means Chovy can just shove in, pick himself up a plate while Faker is backed. And Faker doesn't want to use his teleport, because I think this teleport is one that you want to use to try and impact the rest of the map. You know, maybe a bot lane overextension, a collapse on top side, actually get an objective out of that, so he can't really go for that. Plates have now dropped, and this is one of the first times in, I think, quite a while that we see T1 on the back foot in terms of early game gold, because their early games have been so aggressive, and they've been doing basically what Hanwha is doing right now.
Yeah, and if you look at the stats, you wouldn't be too sad as a T1 fan, as right now you're certainly not, as Morgan is just going to get taken out pretty comfortably here. Owen is going to turn into a Camille for a little while, and that's going to help take down a bit of this turret. Of course, no plating, so not going to be able to collect that, but still first turret blood to go over to T1. And maybe it's just a little bit later, but now the advantages are starting to come through for T1.
Yeah. Just before the 50-minute mark. There we go. Back to the lead.
Perfect. There we go.
All according to plan, Atlas.
It's all part of the stats. You got to make sure you nail it. As Carrier might be in a little bit of trouble here, as the Q's going to miss from Willa. There's the kick into the wall. As Carrier gets that subjugate down, flashes away. True Shot Barrage doesn't find anyone, but because of all of the maneuvering, they're not able to actually close the distance onto Carrier. But Flash now down for the Trundle, and still some pressure as Arrow is going to connect there to Kuma. As Def going very aggressive 1v2. This is going to turn up to the extra shielding and additional health. Ona's going to be able to take Shirley down as T1 taking some advantages elsewhere on the map.
I was about to commend Hanwha Live for going for that play, but then not committing the arrow, because it allows you to have a much better setup at the upcoming Drake in 20 seconds. And then before I get the opportunity to say it, Dev's like, no, we're going to go in.
Hey, if you take people off the map, though, then you're going to have better setup.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm loving it. This is a really good look, and I think Deft individually has looked a lot better in summer than he did in spring, but it hasn't really led to anything, because the state of Hanwha as a team has just been lackluster. As you do still need to respect here as Kana and Ona. There is teleport available, but it is, I think for T1, they're still biding their time, which I think is fine. Yes, the scaling on Hanwha is great in terms of obviously Camille in the side lane. Lulu is going to make every carry on the team stronger. We know the impact that a LeBlanc can have, even in mid to late game when she's able to blow up targets. But as T1, the team fights are amazing. The lack of reliable, consistent AP damage outside of the Lissandra, not the biggest issue when the lineup is relatively squishy.
Yeah.
And loving this back and forth here. It's a really cool game, Atlas.
It is. Certainly a lot more cerebral than I was expecting. I was kind of expecting a bit of a snowball here, but it's not the way that it has turned out, as we've got one Dragon apiece and a Mountain Soul on the Rift, as Chovy being a little bit frustrated.
Just a little bit.
Former teammate in Carry is just going to get booped by the LeBlanc a little, as Carrier shows Chovy his trophy. Now Hanwha just trying to play some defense here. T1 feeling like they're back in their element as they move towards the mid-game, threatening with this amazing team-fighting composition. And Chronicler, is it about time for a bit of a rant about outcomes and possibilities?
I think we'll have some time, because there's no objectives on the map.
Yeah.
Might have a little shove going on in mid, but Atlas, take it away.
I'll try and be as succinct as possible. And so these are the scenarios after Damwon Kia secured their 2-0. They 100% advanced straight to playoff round 2, thus claiming their world's position. There are no tiebreakers regarding Damwon Kia. The game score is absolutely too high. Regardless of the game score, if T1 loses here today, as we do have a little bit of trading And Morgan is going to get a nice little stun there. Ona does come through, but Vistra and Willa are closing in. There's the ulti from Morgan. Can they lock down Ona? It's a big Gnar into the wall. Ona tries to flash away, but Morgan is immediately after him. Now Canna down to about half as Vista has to flash away. Good safeguard to help keep him safe. But Willa's going to have to sacrifice himself for it as Chovy has now teleported in. Chains will connect onto Kerry, who gets taken down low. Now Deft trying to funnel them through here. Doesn't have the arrow, but there's the volley onto Faker. Claw of Doom to come through as Faker may have sacrificed himself, but no, he has the Frozen Tomb. And now Morgan diving in one more time. T1, their health bars are so low, but it does not matter. They finish off the Camille and win out in the skirmish.
And that's a high-risk commit there from T1 to go in back after that. Extended trades against the Lulu are always going to leave you terrified, but it works out in the end. Play doesn't start off great, and I feel like this is a big risk you're taking as T1, considering that you are very deep in the enemy territory. Even with that turret going down, Owner is desperately looking for an attempted reset. What we see though is that he gets taken down, really nicely done by Vist as well, finding the early knock-up there on top of Morgan. And then here, it's looking a little scary for T1. But reinforcement arrive in the form of Gumayushi, as well as Faker, who teleports in. And then here I think they're gonna call it off. And this is a beautiful setup that is found here. Faker going in, baiting the immediate exhaust that comes through, and then Morgan is kind of forced to commit, because if he doesn't go in there, they kill Deft 100%, and then if he dies, everyone else goes anyway because you lose so much of your consistent damage. But still, yeah, it's a nice pickup, but Humble Life was able to get the kill themselves as well, and no actual objective was found.
Yeah, not too much for it, as Faker not going to find the Circle of Frost. Ring of Frost, sorry, I believe is what it's actually called. It's been a while since I've done my homework when it comes to Lysandra, but that's okay. Just have to remember the tomb, and then you're basically fine. As now Faker, he's not so fine. He's going to have to claw his way over that wall, and does so. As we are just going to see Humble Life Esports take down this outer turret. Pillar notwithstanding. They will steal away some chickens as well. So, brute forcing that mid turret, definitely good as Canna. Well and truly out in front when it comes to both levels and the gold. Yeah, he will hit 14 before anyone else on the map.
Yeah, the spikes that are now hit for T1 are humongous, because you have two items in Gumayushi. Ezreal is now a legitimate champion, can do things, has a Divine Thunder as well as the Mara Munis, so the damage that's going to come through of that is devastating. And I think one of the strongest two item spikes, it's either Gore Drinker, Sterex, or rather Gore Drinker, or Divine Thunder with that Sterex now done.
Yep.
And that's, if you're not humongously ahead, it's already terrifying. But he is. He's very far ahead. And this is a position that now for Humble Life, Morgan scaling into this matchup is very far away. I think you're looking towards 3 items at the very least, which is a good 10-15 minutes with the current pace that it's going, which is not great if you're looking at Humble Life, but the team fighting is still strong. But it comes more about how much can Willer and Chovy burst, and can Deft do consistent damage. Also has the Wits End available, and I thought you were going to have the time to explain us all the implications, but then they just started fighting!
And there were no kills until now, as Kerry is going to have to flash to get out of the way of that chain. Chovy still being aggressive, gets himself a bit of a health picks there as well. Keep him safe. Now Canna looking for some boomerangs, does not find any. As Willa now will force out an arcane shift. That is about that. As we've got 10 seconds on this first Mountain Drake of the game. You can see neither team wanting to give this one up. Claw comes through. It's a really nice pillar, as we're not going to be able to get over the wall, and Willa will just be taken down. Beautifully cancelled there. No safeguard for you, my friend, as now Kerry in a bit of trouble. That's an exhaust immediately onto Chovy. He does have to use that Mimic Distortion to get himself over the other wall. And now Humble Life Esports on the definite defense, as Canna has a big knob up and will be slowed down by that Frost Shot, as Chovy getting really chunked here by T1, who should be able to go over and grab their first Mountain Drake of the game. I'm feeling a shift, Chronicler. I feel like T1 have really gathered some control here since the mid-game.
It's been really nicely done. I think even the early game, but yeah, Humble Life was able to get a couple of leads. You saw that T1 was very clearly also playing defensively, where Ona's main job was just to track Willa, and he was generally there when he needed to be. He was moving around the map, he was keeping track of the lead, looking for possible dive opportunities against his teammates, and then there when those arose. And it's just the power of this composition if you can get a single target, and it's, of course, it's Aria that actually sets it up. Didn't even see that pillar, but...
Frozen Tomb stopping him mid-safeguard as well. That was very, very sad. And then it was the Lee Sin sandwich in the wall.
Yep.
Bad
very unfortunate, because if that pillar doesn't hit, Willa just safeguards out, and he's fine. It's that split second that gives Fake an opportunity to go for the ultimate. And... yeah, it's a really interesting momentum turn from T1, considering that comp, it makes sense, right? Because we saw the early prior from Hanwha Live, and I think that Hanwha Live later on that really nicely as Kana is going to get collapsed upon.
Yeah, it's going to be a really nice stun there from the hook shot immediately. The ulting comes out. And the ultimatum was pretty brutal onto Canada, who will just be eviscerated. But the rest of T1 now moving towards this mid lane. They will hopefully be able to trade something for the death of their Nah, but no, not going to be able to quite do it here, as the arrow's going to connect onto Faker, denied the claw, as the kick actually moves more to save him, as Willer is going to get ulted by the Lulu. Now Def trying to chase after them, Chovy looking for Carrier, as Faker goes golden for some reason, might have been a little bit of a mistake, but does find the claw once again, but Vista will be able to take him down. Now the rest of Hanwha Life Esports, they're so mobile, they're closing in, and it is going to be Carrier taken down. Deft destroying one of his best friends. Very sad, but this is the Rift. It is do or die for these players.
Hello.
Very much trying to deny this. Gumayushi is still uber dangerous.
There's Kana
Against Hanwha Life Esports, but so is Def. Close to full health as Guma looking to try and take the blast going, but Def finds the auto attack. And Will is still keeping this Baron leash. Now Canon's trying to get out of there, but the Frost Shot is slowing him down, and Hanwha Life Esports are just killing them one by one. Canon now trying to turn this, does almost have the Narbar, but he's polymorphed. And he was adorable before, he's even more adorable and then dead, unfortunately. In T1, that's a lot of losses, one after the other.
And I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be worth it. They do hold the Baron, and that's your main goal. Giving up that Baron would have been such a boon for the Hanwha Life comp, where you see, once they're the one who decides the pace, when they're the one who can go for the opportunities, who can find the re-engage there after T1 gets greedy, trying to attempt a punish for the play on Kana on bot side, it is just beautifully done. And this is just an overextension. Really nice flash hookshot there from Morgan to deny Kana getting away. And then, of course, Chovy's the one enabling that play by teleporting behind. And then, yeah, Guma, it's an Ashe. You're never getting away, unfortunately. Just the final orders coming through there is really nicely done. But this is very early, and that's the reason why this doesn't lead to Owner and Kana just getting blown up and then going back and taking down the Baron. The death timers are short. He got so close.
This polymorph, man. It's
beautiful.
Absolutely amazing.
And yeah, looked really bad to go one by one. Could have played out a lot cleaner. But the main thing is they didn't get Baron.
Yeah, denying the Baron, definitely a good
thing. That's the most, the way you go about it could have been, I think, a lot cleaner. And it all goes back, and we didn't see that in the replay, but it's understandable, because what T1 tried to do is the moment that Kana knew that he was getting caught, when the moment Morgan was flash on, we saw the pings go down. It's like, okay, let's go for this turret, go for this turret. And that's an okay idea, if not for the fact that you know how good this chase is from Hanwha Life. These are all either highly mobile carries, in the case of Morgan, Willa, and Chovy, or it's people with insane sticking and chasing power, in the case of Death especially, as he did there if he hits an arrow, but even just Volley, Lulu, and Swifties with Shirelias is going to make you zoom towards the enemy team. Now Hanwha Life.
Yeah, Deft is doing a lot of damage right now. Rage Blade is now completed, and that's only going to even augment that further, as that's a flash over the wall from Chovy. Faker just dives in on top of him, as he does get the Whimsy shield, but he's now out of the fight. His owner dives into the pit, but he's just taken down. Willa will be exhausted, but all 5 members are still alive on Hanwha Life, and they're the ones with a smite in this pit. No, they're not actually. Willa, it's on cooldown, as Morgan looking to dive in. This is going to be shaky, because they have to try and wait out a smite, or just try and battle it with the damage that they have. They look for the turn instead, and Morgan just takes down the backline. Faker going golden, but unfortunately, he is not going to be able to do anything in the shadow of his own trophy provided by Carrier. He will be taken out. Gumayushi over the wall. Just don't think he's going to be able to do anything. And Hanwha, they win another fight. And it looks like this time they'll be able to get a Baron.
And it is an all-or-nothing attempt to try and take down Chovy. And as it turns out, it's not 78 health on the Baron. That could have been a disaster.
It's like, Willa didn't even need the smite as it turned out. They should have just taken it.
And that is a really big difference, I think, between the Humble Life that we see here before us today and the Humble Life that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. That call to not finish that Baron, to not go for the flip, to not say... Of course, you can also argue, don't start up Baron if you don't have Smite, which I think in this scenario, I don't mind Humble Life trying to force as much as possible, try and skirmish. Because T1, I think, in a straight-up 5v5, if they're the one who have map controls, they're really strong. What's happening instead is T1 is like, they're just scrambling the whole time, right? Like, they're trying to make a play, they're trying to... Yeah. They're doing Baron, they're going in. What do we do? And in this scenario, it's, again, the value of this Lulu coming through here, and... it is just so nicely done, right? Like the value that Vista provides here, the polymorph again, then the shielding that comes through, the health bars that stay relatively high, and then this call to not risk it, right? Just leave the Baron at high enough health, knowing that you'll be able to win the fight. Ultimate's already used. Gumayushi doesn't get any damage done.
Not really, and Deft does so much. Just watching him constantly kiting, starting all the fights whenever he wants to with his arrow, now has himself his QSS, so he's just not afraid of anything that T1 can put down. I was actually skeptical of the fact that he took heal instead of cleanse, but you're just going to build yourself QSS. I guess you don't necessarily need it. Plus he has a Lulu. His owner takes half of his health bar as Chovy just goes over and gives him a hug. A very dangerous hug.
This is just an insane game for Deft. Like we've seen glimpses of this Deft, I think, throughout summer. We go back to some of the games, but it never came together for Humble Life. And is this too late? I think one can argue, but let's not forget
the
on
miracle
runs possible, Atlas. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And we joke about it, but it actually is. And if there's one thing that we've seen, it's that the current state of the LCK is in such flux that it's impossible to call who are... even at this point, the strongest team. I guess you'd argue Dalmor, but who knows, right? Like, I don't know. T1 clearly doesn't know, because I don't think they expected Humble Life to show up the way that they did here today. And let's not forget, we didn't get to do the rant yet. Yeah. But the very easy thing, T1 wants the 2-0, and that's right now looking
let's have a look at what happens if T1 loses, though, because that's looking like somewhat of a possibility here, considering the 7,000 gold lead for Humble Life Esports. So, if Nongshim win, Nongshim are first, and Dalmonkia are second. That is set in stone, because Nongshim, no one else can make it to 12 victories. I do not believe. 12 or 13, something like that. So whichever number, they're the only team that can get.
That's if they lose the series, right?
That's if they lose this series in any way whatsoever, as Arrow will connect onto Gumayushi, but he's well and truly underneath his inhibitor turret, so he will be okay for now.
Continue.
So, if Nongshim lose 1-2, then Dalmonkia are first, Nongshim are second. If Nongshim lose 0-2, then Genji are second. So Genji fans rejoice. If Humble Life Esports win here, then Genji stands a chance of escaping round one of the playoffs, which is huge, because you are so close to then guaranteeing your own world spot because of the amount of championship points you had by coming second in the spring season.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's nutty. However, there are some other scenarios as well. If T1 get a 2-0 victory and then Nongshim win, then Nongshim are first and Dalmonkia are second. If Nongshim lose, then Dalmonkia are first and T1 are second.
Yeah, that 2-0, I don't... that's 2-0 opportunity. It's possible still, but...
Okay, so let's go to a potential 2-1 victory for T1. Then if Nongshim win, then Nongshim are first and Dalmonkia are second, because if Nongshim win at all, then they're going to be first. If Nongshim lose 1-2, then Dalmon are first, Nongshim are second. Nongshim and T1 are then tied, but Nongshim won against them in both round 1 and 2, and therefore they will win the head-to-head and therefore come out on top. But if Nongshim are 0-2 against Genji, then T1 are second once again. So, it all comes down to what happens in the later series today. However, there are a couple of possible outcomes where T1 can still make it, right? So it doesn't matter necessarily whether or not T1 are going to be able to win 2-0 or 2-1, but just the ways that they're going to get there are going to be slightly different. So 8,000 gold lead for Humble Life Esports as I bring myself back to the video game at hand. It's quite difficult with all these different scenarios, but I hope
It's so
it makes
fun.
somewhat sense to you guys.
It's so fun though, because it matters so much for these teams. Like that playoff bye is huge, but even getting as high up in the standings as you possibly can and the amount of mobility that we still available, with the extremely volatile matchups as they are, right? Like there's a possibility of Dom1 not ending, or rather, no, Dom1 is always through, but like Nongshim ending up in like 3rd place. But then think back to what Nongshim has done this entire split. Like they've been pretty insane.
They have. There are still a lot of scenarios where I believe even if they lose, they still be able to potentially get a 2nd place, just given the fact that they do have a fair few points. So thankfully they are rewarded for how well they did in the regular season, but it's just so many teams so extraordinarily close here in these standings, and we do have potential tiebreakers as well, ladies and gentlemen. We will go over those implications after this match. But it's largely to do with what happens if Gen G loses, because Gen G could be in 6th place, I believe, as they could potentially tie with Afrika Freaks and then have to play a tiebreaker, and if they lose, then Afrika are 5th. That's the world we live in. It's crazy.
It's madness. But and this is what T1 is doing here, if you have been paying attention to the actual video game. Well, not that much has happened. Base has not been broken open definitively, but of course the state right now for T1 isn't great. Faker!
Oh yeah, Faker just going to be chain CC'd, and he can't even claw his way out. Now Morgan looking for Carrier. He's put into the Hextech ultimatum, and he doesn't have the answer for it. It's a double kill for Chovy, and Humble Life Esports now have a purple worm on a silver platter.
And I was just about to launch it. How can T1 come back? Because while it's unlikely, it's not impossible. They do still have a lot of initial blow-up power, but you need Faker. It all starts with that Lissandra. Because Lissandra is the one that sets up for a possible Gnar play, right? If Karnov finds a multi-man stun, that's fine. But without the setup, probably not getting that.
On anti-owner duty. Let's see what they can do. They dive into the pit alongside him. He goes golden, but the Baron not in smite range just yet. The Baron's going to be taken by Willa, and the Viego is taken down as well. Faker has teleport, but he's not alive for another 5 seconds time. Now, T1, what are they going to do? There's no Drake to answer. All the waves are pushed towards them. Their options are really running low, and this is probably the best mid to late game we've seen from Humble Life Esports all season long.
100%. Yeah, I don't think anything can be even close, and it is a even more vivacious kind of renaissance that we're seeing here. Yeah, no, but it's similar to what we saw happen to teams like KT and BRX once it was clear that it was over. Yep. Right? Like, you play without any pressure. You're just playing to play as well as you possibly can. And then also, here the Nerves steals, like, no, we're just going to let the Baron, let it sit. And Owner is forced to just smite to try and stay alive and maybe get a Miracle Steal that way. Doesn't even keep him alive for long enough, dies immediately afterwards. Willa is just sitting there, ready to go. And now, this is a gold lead that should be insurmountable. It requires immense amount of mistakes. Humble Life walking into multiple people or getting hit by a Gnar in a position that they should not be in. And it's not just, like, yes, it's been enabled by, I think, Deft in particular having an absurd game, but Vista is looking like Spring Vista again, where he was legitimately one of the better supports, right? Morgan,
I think, is a real highlight this game, because this is not the type of playstyle he is necessarily known for, right?
Proper tank.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is like team fighting Camille, but also skirmishing, like being aggressive, and that is what Morgan really has been lacking. Not this game. He's looked real good as, oh my goodness, that little tap onto Gumayushi will send him packing, as this inhibitor will be the first one to go down, as Humble Life Esports really putting the screws in. Morgan splitting on the bottom side. Willa's in the mid lane. We've got all of these waves just greeting T1. This Nexus tower going down extraordinarily quickly with these double siege minions.
They can't even clear.
Yeah, Chovy going to be able to get out of there with the distortion. The claw is not going to be opted in for whatsoever. And the next inhibitor will go down, and everything's just falling like dominoes in the T1 base. And now just all grouping under this one last lone bastion of hope. And it's another arrow that connects onto Faker. He does manage to get his Zhonya's off as everyone's going golden. Faker is now going to use his ultimate, but it's not going to be enough. Chovy just dives in on top of him now. Owner trying to keep himself alive as Morgan's right in there in the back line, and the wallets are so heavy. Hanwha flashing forward, and Kana be the last one to go down. Humble Life Esports, a clean ace outside of Willa falling down, and the Nexus will also fall. 38 minutes, and Humble Life Esports will topple T1.
It's the last game of the split. Might as well play some of the best league you've shown all season. Why not, Atlas? As
Where were you, Humble Life? Where were you all season long?
Atlas missed you so much.
Where were you when I predicted you were going to win and get into 6th place? Gosh darn it. Absolutely incredible play here from this team. I think it all started with the amount of bottom lane dominance that they had, but the rest of the team playing beautifully around that initial entrance point into the game. Chovy as well, just an absolute god on his LeBlanc. Always a joy, but that was into a counter matchup. That was into a matchup that does struggle a lot, especially here in the LCK. But Faker was just counteracted throughout that entire game. The arrows magnetized towards this Lissandra. And fantastic game from Humble Life Esports.
It was beautiful. And we saw that this is a problem that T1 have had throughout the split. And it's been a problem that has been mostly hidden because they've always had big early game leads. But it's that when they're behind, they have an issue finding openings and regaining control of the game. This is something that seems like Nongshim and Damwon Kia are much better at, where you feel that inevitability, right? Like, as long as it's not a gold lead that is completely insurmountable, there's not that much to be done. It's, yeah, Defton, okay, Defton, Chovy, we get it. You guys are both, yeah.
You're both pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. And we joke, but it's good to see this Humble Life again, and I just hope that it isn't just for this game, and we go back to business as usual in the next one, but with...
I don't want to have to say gosh darn it again, because, I mean, swearing is not allowed on the broadcast, but...
No.
I had to say it. I want to apologize to anyone who thought that their ears hurt by the complete irrationality of my heinous cussing.
But it matters so much.
No, it does. And also, we knew that Humble Life Esports had this kind of potential. Let's see whether they can grab themselves a 2-0, really set themselves up for a good run when it comes to that World's Gauntlet. They're going to have to. There's the best of 3. And we are going to go to a short break. When we get back, is it going to be T1 or can Humble Life Esports close it out?
있어. 산드라 봐봐, 나 킥커팅 해볼게.
해봐. 나 소식 한번 있고. 천천히 가봐.
네, 컨저 맞았고.
나름부터 때릴게.
그거. 너 비고 봐, 비고 봐.
비고.
비고 봐줘. 천천히 싸움. 나이스.
나이스.
미안하다. 내가 중간에 잘려서.
우리 초반에 좀 너무 못 굴리긴 했다 이거.
그러긴 했다.
세게 있어.
Bobby?
Yordles say that all roads lead to Bandle City. It's not just our home, it's who we are. Especially us Bandle Scouts, who pledge to faithfully uphold the Scout Code and serve Yordle kind, no matter how impossible the mission. We're all taught to tie knots and build traps. But the most important things? I had to leave home to learn those. The outside world is dangerous. Strange, even. But strangers can surprise you. Give them a chance, and they might even lead you somewhere incredible.
welcome back everybody to the LCK Analyst That Can't Live. This is the last day here in the LCK Summer regular split. I'm here Subin, the host, and we're joined by Victory and Gorilla. Hana Life Esports that they cannot make it to the playoffs, but they still have their hope for the World's Gauntlet. And I guess they prepared very hard for this matchup. They had a lot of mainstream champion meta picks, LeBlanc, and also Ashe, Camille. On the other hand, the T1, they also had the meta picks individually, but Trundle Viego was locked in so fast, and then they saw Lee Sin, LeBlanc, so they decided to counter them with the Sandra, and then we had blind pick Ezreal for the bottom lane. Hana Life Esports, they completed their comp very early on, and they didn't have front line. Looking at Lee Sin, LeBlanc, and Camille, so T1, they thought Ezreal and Trundle would be an easy counter into Hana Life's topside comp. So Hana Life Esports decided to play Ashe together with Enchanter support, which allowed them to have their own lane kingdom. And based on that bottom lane priority, Hana Life Esports was banking up their lead, and then they came online in the late game. Lulu was also a perfect counter into T1's picks, and also Ezreal, Trundle. They actually used it in the previous VRX series, and they did. They couldn't really find a huge success up against the rookie Botio of DRX. I think T1 kind of gave away a chance for Hana Life Esports. I think Varus also was a very good pick for their R4 pick, but T1, I think they kind of had a narrow vision finding their pick for their AD carry. In game-wise, I think Hana Life Esports wasn't really that clean, pulling off a setup or a play as a team, but at some point in the game they kind of learned and evolved how to take down T1. So let's take a look at the first replay where Hana Life Esports turned the corner with a simple play. LeBlanc kind of realized how to play this champion. Macro-wise, Gnar was so fed at that point in the game, and Chovy decided to get a pick onto that Gnar with his teleport. And then T1 also made a poor decision here. They had an accident down on the bottom lane, so they got greedy in order to compensate that trade. I think they totally blanked on the fact that Ashe can actually be an initiator of a team fight here. She can stun a specific target, but also she can find slow onto the multiple champions as well. T1 doesn't have the damage output to burst down that Ashe marching forward. And that was the point where Hana Life Esports won. The trade so big and started their own snowball. And it was really impressive to see that Hana Life Esports had some great communication of their own status. They didn't really focus on the objective itself. They decided to keep chasing down the opponent and picked up kills. There were some teams where that focused only on Ashe ult in order to open team fights, especially Hana Life Esports in the previous series as well. They only relied on Daft ultimate to open a team fight, but this time around they were a lot more proactive, and they were making plays on the other side of the rift as well. And here's the second replay where we had a play around the Baron. Chovy had a very fast reaction. The moment he saw Rissandra, he just flashed back. And we had an extended team fight right here. And Deft decided to just march forward. T1, they had Gnar slowly approaching to this area, so they could maybe win a team fight based on Kana's power, especially during the team fight. But Deft kind of realized that he doesn't have any threat on the side of T1. No one can actually reach him and take him down. And it was a perfect turn from Hana Life Esports. They knew that Villar actually used his Smite in order to survive that 1v1 in the Baron pit. So they turned to a team fight and they picked up kills and then they connected that into a Baron. I don't think Hana Life Esports won the game with those two plays, but I think this time around they were much better team than we saw earlier in the split. Deft picks up the POG on Ash, third POG of the split. Perfect score line with this KDA. He was more like a tough guy in this game. He was the one making plays. He was the one winning lane. And he also had some good time and easy time down on the bottom lane as well. And I think also Vista played Lulu because he knew that Ash is one of Deft's comfort picks. In the previous series, Hana Life Esports, when they had Ash on Deft, they did win lane, but they couldn't really transpire that into a game victory. But this time around, we had more tools and options for Hana Life Esports to be able to make plays. For example, LeBlanc and also Camille. Deft always the one leading the charge of Hana Life Esports, making kills in this game. He picked up 10 votes out of 12. Chovy got robbed. With that 2 votes, he was behind a little bit more, but he still had some phenomenal performance. He got 2 votes in total. We're heading into game number 2 between Hana Life Esports and T1, so I'm going to pass it back to our casters for the very important game.
Thank you so much, Jisun, for the translation of the analyst desk. And here we are for game number 2. It's going to be a very different situation here for Hana Life Esports. Not likely that they'll get blue side twice in a row. We've seen it have a lot of power. So I think a lot would make some sense if you were predicting this one to go to the 3 games. And I think if the first game told us anything, then this could definitely be exciting. Forward to seeing how it is going to go. But if Hana Life get a 2-0 here, what happens? How do we adjust our expectations moving forward? Chronicle, I don't know.
I don't know. I have the only team where I'm like relatively confident that they'll perform in playoffs at this point. It's just Damwon. Like the only one where I'm like they're gonna end up like top 3 at the very least. Like no, of course they have to buy, right? But even if they wouldn't, I'm like, yeah, Damwon will get it together. But Nongshim, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Right? T1, it's been so up and down. Gen G recently have looked rough, but I remember thinking Gen G looked kind of last split, and then they 3-0 T1 in a complete out of nowhere demolishment. So I have no clue. I don't know. If Hana Life genuinely get a 2-0 here,
do you know what's absolutely insane? If T1 do lose 0-2, then they go to +6 game score at 11-7, which is exactly the same as Live Sandbox and Afrika Freaks, but Live Sandbox are on +5 and Afrika are on +4. So then we'd have 4, 5, and 6 when it comes to game score. Then Gen G will take on Nongshim. If Gen G lose, they'll also be on 11-7, and they will be at either +5 or +4, and then we will get that tiebreaker. It's insanity. Of course, Nongshim will then move to 13 victories, and we will see them in first place. But if they lose, I mean, oh man, there are just so many different outcomes. But everyone is so extraordinarily close here at the end of the season. And I kind of want Nongshim to lose so that we have like our entire top 6 within 2 matches of one another.
Yeah,
because it's just super cool. Seeing
that's the future.
So close.
It's just everyone can win.
Yeah. As there was a draft that was happening while I was just ranting about things.
Hello, Crocodile.
As the Crocodile is left up, we've got a Lucian, Aurelia, and a Diana ban on the side of T1, and then the Lee Sin, Jace, and the Ryze. Makes a lot of sense here. The Ryze, of course, an answer to that Lucian ban. Actually, no, you don't necessarily need it. Ryze does okay into Lucian, so just trying to get rid of a strong tool here.
Yeah, I think T1's macro with Ryze has been basically unstoppable. So I understand that decision. Yep. Also, the Renaxan pick doubles as not only a flex, but also a pick away from Morgan, one of his most reliable champions. Hello, Willa.
Okay, that's a Nidalee lock-in.
Yeah, well, I get that. I wouldn't want to play against owner on Italy with a Renekton in the game. That doesn't sound like a good time. Where's my Maokai pick, Hanwha?
Oh no, then they'll give it to Chovy.
Yeah!
Oh, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Just flex it.
I don't like Hanwha always going towards the set, but they are going to do it once again. We saw the set support work out quite well yesterday. I believe it was yesterday anyway. The days kind of melding into one another, but set has been something that has found a little bit of success in the support role. It's now T1. Let's see how they round out their first few picks here. As it could be a bottom lane, but they could also just solidify their top side of the map. This will mean that Faker will be heading onto the Renekton.
That's also a very strong read from T1 that we are working with a topside set, right?
Yeah.
Because I think blinding cannon is not something that generally you want to go into, especially not with the Gnar still available. Unless they look in Kalista and we go to a cannon support.
Ooh, I love that.
It's carrier, right? So I'm just throwing it out there. I highly doubt that will happen. As
is that Graves?
That's a blast from. Oh, he's looking happy.
He's locking it. All right. Nidalee versus Graves. Man, we really have to cast our minds back. As I'm getting reminded of last year's Worlds. You know,
no. This isn't jungle. This is mid Graves.
Ah.
It's Renekton top mid Graves, and then it's Kalista and
LS
Cannon.
is working for T1 at the moment. I could understand why that would be coming through here as Gragas being hovered, but I think I like this Camille a little bit more, so that will give Nidalee Camille over to Harmer Life Esports. Very powerful up there towards the top side, and if that hookshot connects onto the cannon, very, very dangerous. In the lane, should be okay for Kennen. However, the gank power is just ridiculous, and Camille will heavily outscale.
Yeah, Camille inside is not going to be answerable by anyone on T1. But the early game prio is going to be heavily favored towards this cannon. And that is something that I think T1 were really lacking in the last game. That we noticed is that Faker had a little bit of lane control, but especially on the bot side, it was very favored for Hanwha Life. And it's interesting that considering how pivotal the bot lane matchup was in the last game, that we don't see any prior bot lanes getting picked up, and I think that's also a sign that both these teams are looking to try and catch each other off guard, right? Like trying to really utilize your hidden picks to the very latest, because this might be set support, but we still don't know.
It could be set mid as well.
Yeah, exactly. Could be Chovy, so
in the past.
Could also be Camille mid. We truly don't know.
Yeah,
when it comes to Hanwha.
The Camille mid, was it Showmaker or Chovy that had the horror game on?
I think it was
mid
Chovy.
I'm trying to remember. I might actually just do some research, because my old man memory is not exactly what it used to be. It was never good, to be perfectly honest. It hasn't changed. As okay, Trundle going to be banned away here. We are in League of Trundle at the moment, and Trundle will be denied. I like him in the jungle a little bit more than support.
I think on that Ashe. That's
I think
my main
Ashe
question.
should be banned, but it's going to be Ziggs instead. Tahm Kench will just be insta-locked. I love this. This Tahm Kench is the three-way flex right now.
You know what this is setting up for, right? You know it. You know it. It's Deft's Jinx.
Ooh. No, I'm expecting the last pick Ashe.
And then it's Ashe
set.
Yeah.
And it's Tahm Kench top. And it's mid Camille. As that's a Jhin. Looking to try and just get through the laning phase once again. As Jhin's certainly known to do that. The carrier on Leona is a very dangerous prospect. One thing I don't like about T1's draft is the fact that they have Graves Renekton. And this has historically been pretty horrible, to be perfectly honest. You build the steel caps and then you feel really happy when it comes to, you know, surviving in that lane.
And you have Jhin. So that's also not helping, because Jhin is not a carry that is going to be happy when everyone around him is going to be very tanky. And it will be the more traditional setups, I think. Set mid for Chovy, and then Morgan on the top Camille. I want the Kench to be top, but it never will be.
I really want the Kench to be top.
I know.
Camille mid, Camille versus Renekton mid lane, and then Willett camping. It would be a beautiful way for this lane to work out. However, it will just be the far more LCK-esque draft.
I think it makes sense, right? You don't want to really pick the Camille into the Renekton. It's not the greatest matchup. Can hold the W and negate your shield. It's not the end of the world, but it's not it's playing into Renekton as a melee character that isn't set, or Kench.
Yeah.
Isn't very fun. And I think if you fall behind with this draft, you are in deep trouble as T1.
Yes.
Way more than last one, where I felt like, even considering how blowout the later fights were, it didn't look that way, but I still think that comp had opportunity had they not completely lost all semblance of control, right? Because the tempo that was dictated but to them by Hanwha was just too much. This one though, not happening. I don't think you want to go into late. You have a huge problem later on getting through some of these beefier members. Chovy, Morgan later on, Vista is going to be a brick wall. So mid-game, name of the game, but mid-game spikes for Hanwha Life. Terrifying as well.
This is the thing, I think that Hanwha Life really have had their finger on the pulse when it comes to the draft so far today. I think a lot of people will be looking into this mid lane and saying, but that's not Chovy on a carry. But let's see what Chovy can actually do here, because we have seen sets carry in the past. But still, I mean, like you say, I think that T1 certainly have a lot of tools for winning early skirmishes, but I'm really hoping that Ona plays around the top side of the map.
Yes,
please. With this Graves to really augment Canna and put Morgan down. Because if this Camille can just do what she wants, this is going to be a really difficult game for T1. And we saw Morgan have a really good game in the last one. Died a couple of times early, but then was able to be in exactly the right place. Plus, he's going to be so important in team fights to try and remove the cannon with his Hextech ultimatum. He can either isolate the cannon or push him out of the fight. And that's certainly going to be a huge opportunity. Vista's exhaust is also going to be very, very valuable, and something that we will have to keep our eye on as this game goes on.
Deft went for the Comet build, one that we haven't seen now. It's a bit more about the Halo Blades.
Yeah.
Also picked himself up Gathering Storm, unlike Kana, who went with Scorch. I don't know how we feel about that one. In this scenario, though,
I think Scorch is better. If you're gathering the storms, then it's not going to be a great time. And he already gathers storms. That's what he does.
You are the storm, right? Yeah. Is his title the Eye of the Tempest? I want to say yes, but I'm not sure. That might also be a Janna thing.
I'll give it to you. Eye of the Tempest does sound a bit Jannery.
It might be, yeah.
But I'm not entirely sure. And Jannery definitely not a word. As it sounds like...
It's never held you back.
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. I just need to tell people that sometimes I say things that are not words, despite the fact that my job is to say words. Chovy now just going to be commanding some respect here in this mid lane set. Certainly a lot of staying power within this lane, as Faker being very patient, as this wave will just maneuver towards him. And he has taken Slice and Dice first, which is not exactly the most power, but he is going to be able to use it aggressively here, as we just saw, level 2 now game, as he just sidesteps the Haymaker quite nicely.
Also see the ward on the Raptors there, meaning that they do know that Owner is pathing towards top side, and we might have an early 2v2 there. Because as you pointed out, they need to play for Kana. And they do play for Kana generally, so in that regard, good on you, T1.
Yep.
Because if this cannon falls behind, even footing is manageable, but like if it falls behind and his damage is negligible, then it becomes so easy for Hanwha Life to itemize. Their mid-game spikes will be really hard to deal with. And making sure that Kana can just keep shoving like he is right now is a really, really important task for T1. The Renekton, once he hits a couple more levels, is going to be able to shove a lot more reliably as well. Does really need level 3, 4 until he can reliably start trading with the set. As we saw, level 1 set is not a champion that a lot of people can deal with. Maybe Trundle, but Trundle was banned though.
Yeah.
And there's very few things that can match a early Trundle as Owner.
Yeah, some
saying
possible
hello.
meetings here, as we do have Owner just transitioning over towards this scuttle. Did manage to grab the top one, as Vista will be very quick and takes this one down. So Owner going to be completely known here towards the bottom side. Canna, of course, with information about Willer as well, will mean that he can continue putting on the pressure up here, waiting for that W. Try and get a little bit more damage onto Morgan, who's playing very respectfully into the early cannon, as you definitely want to do.
Oh yeah. Ooh, loving this. Owner going for an early invade. I wonder whether he's going to camp the brush.
Oh, he is.
Oh boy. Ooh, I don't know if they see Willer. Don't think they did.
Alright, Willer actually moving towards the bottom side. His Gromp is up. Now Chovy looking for a possible face breaker. Willer is going to at least be in the area. Shadowing Chovy. We liked this about his play in game number 1. And another thing I want to draw your attention to as well, everyone, is the fact that Willer can gank any lane. There is so much setup everywhere for this Nidalee. And we need to see him be a little bit active. Right now, he is just perma-farming. But if he can get into these lanes and really get some kills, this could be a blowout for Harm Alive, as that's another phase breaker. Chovy collects himself a turret shot onto Faker as well, which is definitely good news for him.
Yeah, and Oner now falling behind relatively early. We saw the pings go down earlier on, so they had an idea where Willer was. Now, of course, also spotting the ward, but the moment that Chovy walked up, Faker was question mark pinging, like, hey, I think there might be Nidalee there. And with the early CS deficit already being founded by Graves, this is one of the reasons why actually Nidalee was always picked into Graves, right? Because you ignore the true grit, the extra armor that he stacks is fairly negligible to you, and you're able to at least catch up. And in this scenario, with Willer just farming and Oner looking and failing to find either an invade or a ganking opportunity, build up a substantial CS lead here.
Yeah, the thing as well is that with the extra health that she got recently in her buff, also means that you can roll a little bit better with the Graves as well. So you think that maybe that matchup is even improved further. I was trying to cast my mind back as to, you know, who really wins out, because you can really hard farm on the Graves as well.
Yeah.
And it sort of does depend on, you know, where the rest of your lanes are and what kind of priority you're able to pick up.
It's more of a soft counter, right? Like, it's a nice matchup. It's not one that is like the Jace Wukong, for example. What we've seen, what it can do as Scuttle Skirmish.
Yeah, and seeing the bottom lane as well try and tussle for position down here as Gumayusi taking a lot of damage. Has to flash as Willer looks to try and get in there. Did utilize his Abyssal Dive as now Harm Alive Esports moving back towards this Scuttle, but it's just the remnants. The rest of T1 were able to get it, but now double flashes down for the bottom lane of T1 in trade for just a bit of Shellfish.
They got the Crab Atlas, so Oner calls his worth. I don't think the T1 bot lane does.
No.
Because in a level, Death will have his ultimate available, and getting rid of that one is a lot harder now. Yeah.
Already used here as Faker's positioning, quite aggressive. Will run out relatively soon, just using that to push out this wave as Oner paying a bit of a visit towards the bottom side as Keria does not find the Zenith Blade, but does hit it onto the minion wave to help Guma take it down a little bit faster potentially. As we do have Willer here in the vicinity. His positioning around the map has been leagues better than we've seen in previous matchups. Willer really has his jungle sense in order here today.
Yeah, looking really good. Him and Oner basically continuously running into one another, having the same idea consistently. As unfortunate trade there. Really nicely done by Chovy as well. One of the things, of course, that you want to ensure is that you're actually able to get off your Haymaker. So comboing it early on in the stun of your smash is kind of required. And while all of this has been happening, I called for Oner to play for Kana. That hasn't been done, but as we see, that is a favorite matchup.
Yeah, it's a pretty good matchup, especially here in the LCK.
Yep. However, just keeping track of Willer does mean that Khan has been able to do what you're supposed to do on the cannon in this matchup, and that is a really nice start. Ultimate also available, and I think it's risky for Harm Alive to go in if you don't land any poke preemptively.
Well, they're going to try to, as Canner is going to move down, and it is just going to be the Rift Herald secured. So, Hanwha now able to back away if they would like to. I think it is an intelligent maneuver. They will do so. Morgan was pre-harassed by this cannon. And I think giving that up was smart of Hanwha. We would like to see them try and make some moves, as Will is here towards the top side. Going to be clearing out some control vision as Morgan gets that ward over the wall. And it's Gumayusi coming up for a potential dive here. Oner takes a spear to the face. Keria is going to turn up though. There's a 4-man investment. As hookshot comes down, Morgan is going to be able to make it out as Chovy finds the ultimate, flashes forward. Faker in trouble. He's not going to go down just yet, but he does have to flash. It's a trade. As both of the mid laners now without their ultimates or their flashes, but it looks like Chovy will be able to grab himself at least a plate here. And Deft is down here on the bottom side, unimpeded, so it is just going to be some plate gold going over to Harmar. If you get 2 plates off the back of your opponents taking a Rift Herald, you're pretty happy.
I was really worried because this was not worth at all, right? Like, yes, you pick it up, and I think that going for the Herald is fine, but then Humble Life's response was, let's go and pick up the farm in our lanes. And T1's response was, let's try and multi-man Envision on top side and get ourselves a turret. Humble Life respond appropriately, just have a couple of people hovering around that area, which means you can't really get the first turret blood. And then...
Oh, Chains of Corruption land. Oh no, Faker's just dead. Will is going to grab that kill. Cute little penguin there as well. Really nice setup there from Harmar Life, and that's exactly what this comp is capable of. You know, the pig power of Varus in Italy is not to be underestimated.
And I think you need to get topside as owner. You need to plop down that Rift Herald, get more called into your cannon, and try to find actual 5v5s, because around the map, you're getting kind of dragged around. Faker just face-checking the brush, not even suspecting that someone might be hiding in there. And it's exactly those type of mistakes that give Hanwha Life a much more comfortable game. Because we talked about the solo AP source on T1, it's Kana. Well, same can be said for Willa. And we've seen Peanut show what being the sole middle AP source can do to a team. T1 not really having anyone that loves tanking as Spears. Carrier can, but still doesn't feel amazing and have to use the Eclipse whenever he does. So Willa getting fed is really big for Hanwha. Loving this visit from One. I think this is very necessary. Want to get the first turret blood and get your cannon even further ahead.
That's a big wave being stacked up here by Morgan, though, so it's going to take a little bit of time for T1 to really get that wave into position. I'd like to draw your attention to exactly why I don't like Graves Renekton, by the way. There's this thing called Bramble Vest that Chovy has built, and it makes being Renekton Graves a really horrible thing if you're trying to gank that particular lane. So Chovy is very comfortable right now, as we can see. Currently with a slight level advantage, but also 20 CS in the lead, which is a pretty Chovy thing, but also really going to make things a bit of a worry, as Shelly is going to pop a noggin into the top outer turret.
Yeah, Cannon's about 1,500 gold up now.
Yeah, he's pretty massive.
Okay, so this is going to come down to how can T1 utilize this monstrously fat cannon. Morgan again falling behind. We saw last game, they didn't really deter Morgan at any point as Faker.
Yeah, there's the Dominus. Chovy does have his ultimate available as the Haymaker. He was just holding onto it. Just going to walk it out. Faker knew that he couldn't really go too aggressive there, and no flashes for either of these mid laners. As Chovy wants to be able to get some of this experience, but knows that there is some looping coming down here as Willa turns up, try and at least play some interference. He will look to try and deny whichever plates T1 are going to go for, as Chovy, Pit Grit, helping him out here. Svista's going to move up as well. Dud did move over a ward, but knew that he did. A Solar Flare comes down, and he's just dead. Carrier's able to pick that one up, actually, and Chovy overstaying his welcome in the mid lane.
Very clean CC chain from T1. If you mess that up even a little bit, Chovy gets his Haymaker off. And then, I don't know what happens, but it's definitely bad for T1.
Oh, it's worse than whatever happened just there, because it's pretty nice. For
that was great. That had no downsides. We love that if you're a T1 fan. As Hanwha Life, doesn't quite work out. Chovy also clearly feeling very safe underneath his turret, and a play that needs to be executed well is indeed the case, as Def now sailing on his first item. Those arrows hurt. Nice sidestep by Guma, using his Swifties. Oh, well, that one dodged. Yeah.
That one definitely hurt.
No Drake has been taken yet, and I think as T1, you have your Proto Build and Cannon, you have Teleport. Go find yourself some 5v5s.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I like that idea, as we've got Morgan down here. He's got his teleport available if there's anything he does want to answer. A couple of these plates have been taken 10 seconds until they do fall all the way down. And Hanwha Life are just going to come on over and take this Drake down very comfortably. As now Faker is going to be able to slice his way out, so he'll be okay.
Thank you, Mr. Guma, for the trap. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Carrier taking a little bit of damage here from Deft, as they'll take the long way around to defend this outer turret in the bottom lane.
And this is something that, unlike last game, T1 able to actually get themselves a substantial lead. Last game, they got ahead at 15 minutes, but it was very minute and more of a joke than an actually relevant game state.
Yep.
In the current situation, though, it is most definitely something you're going to feel good about. Of course, Oni does get spotted. He doesn't spot the ward himself. But this is a Cannon, and while I think that Cannon can do fine, has enough with how fed he is 1v1 threat, I want to see him utilize that pick. Faker might try to go for this play with Carrier again, but Chovy, he's not going to fall for that again, has the flash available as well. And I want to see T1 force Hanwha Life into situations where they need to actually engage in 5v5s.
Oh, phenomenal spear there from Willow. As Faker does slice his way over the wall. Shirley now under fire. Some of these spears are landing. Def now getting into position as Canna. His position's known. Dominus has to be popped, and Carrier dives on in there. Instant devour there onto Def, who's now getting out, trying to get the damage down. Chovy in a lot of trouble, gets the face breaker. Haymaker doesn't land onto the cannon, but he does manage to get the kill as now Carrier trying to get out of there. Blast Cone gets him to relative safety, but Deft has a piercing arrow as Faker looks to try and get a dice available, and I believe he did, but didn't need to use it. As Shirley was taken down and picked up by Canna. He sacrificed himself to get the neutral objective, the Eye of the Herald.
Disaster for T1, because the one thing that they want to try and get done, which is utilize the power of this cannon in a nice 5v5 fight, doesn't come to fruition at all. It's a beautiful devour from Vista, and I'm not sure what the stun was, but Kana was basically unable to actually get onto the enemy backline, even using his flash. So we're gonna take a look at that in the replay, because those two things...
I like to think that maybe it was Chovy pressing R on it, because that is pretty dangerous. Okay, no, it wasn't.
It was the chains.
Yeah, and
wow.
also the hook shot.
Yeah, Jeff just immediately hitting him. That's really big, because you see there's no backline access. These health bars are full, and then Cannon does nothing.
Yeah.
And it was also, of course, it was known, so the risk is always there. But with the flash available, you can still try and salvage those kind of situations, especially with Carrier finding that flank there. And it's not the end of the world, but you do lose your lead. And yeah, you get the second Herald, but second Herald is never going to have the same impact that the first one does in terms of what it provides you, unless you can get a tier 2. But going for that is not easy.
Yeah, and Chronicler, I'd like to... Let's talk about some cannon viability. This game, shall we? Let's have a look on the side of Hanwha Life. What kind of answers do they have to the slicing Maelstrom? Well, the obvious one is, of course, the exhaust. Hextech Ultimatum is then pretty good at getting a cannon out of the fight. Oh, the Superplex from the set, pretty good at getting him out of a fight. Devour, pretty good at getting him out of a fight. Chance of Corruption are pretty good at it as well. Not a lot of options here. Is the immediate flash there from Deft. Vista is going to Abyssal Dive into position. Does have the Devourer available as well, but Shirley is going to be able to take down that outer turret in the mid lane. T1 starting to get the screws in, but Morgan splitting on the bottom side, and you can see there is also Chovy on the top side of the map. See whether Shirley can get another charge, and it looks like she will. Oh no! Will are actually able to get her down as Chovy is teleported in, and T1 are going to use that as their option to back away. As soon as T1 do disengage, Morgan is also going to get out of there. This kind of makes his way down bottom side as well. And it's not too bad here for Hanwha, but it was a good play with Shirley there in the mid lane.
And if Guma can actually connect his W onto Deathdead, then maybe they are able to get more out of that. Fake going for the aggressive play there to try and take on the verse. Does still force the flash, right? So it's still a nice play. You're still happy about it.
Yep.
But you don't get as much out of it as you possibly could. And I'm glad you pointed it out. It's not easy being Kana in this game. Yeah. And that's why I think that what we saw T1 do there is okay, but if Hanwha Life show that they're ready to just respond to the cannon, if you go for a straight-up engage, you're gonna have to be looking to use some subterfuge. Maybe go for a flank. Maybe try and get Kana into a brush. We'll have the flash available soon again. Deft won't. So that is a cooldown you can try to play around. And this Infernal Drake is a big one, giving over a second Drake in of itself not the end of the world, but we pointed out, I don't know how happy you're going to be as T1 if you go into the late game.
Yeah.
Miracle plays from Cannon always remain a possibility, but between your Jhin and your Renekton, it's not going to feel amazing.
No, you're going to have to see Canna channel some vintage Smeb, I think, to make this one work. But you can see Hanwha with excessive setup around this area. They're definitely going to be very strong as Chovy just going to eat a few abilities here from Owner, and there's the Hextech ultimatum towards the bottom side. We've got Harmer Life Esports fighting around Canna as in goes Chovy. Looks to try and take him down. The Haymaker is going to be avoided there by the stopwatch from Canna as in goes Willa. Immediately, two are executed as now Faker exhausted as he tries to get into the back line. And the Chains of Corruption ring true as well. It's a double kill. The curtain call means about 0 here for T1 as Hanwha, they win a fight and now move towards the Drake.
And they lose no one. No one dies. Kana gets caught, and it's again. This Camille has been so pivotal for Humble Life because Morgan is more than happy to start it off. Deft's arrows are in. It's point and click today. I don't know what he ate this morning.
Deft has been practicing some archery, dude. That's what he's been doing. His Ash fantastic in game 1. Gets another bow on the Varus here in game 2. Absolutely fantastic.
He watched the Olympics and he was like,
that's what
okay, I gotta step up, guys, because look at these arrows. And yeah, it's just really nicely done. Yeah, there we go.
And the flash from Willa. He's like, I know that spear's going to hit, but this is a double kill, by the way.
Insane. And then the immediate devour from Vista, making us forget that it's an ultimate this time. No longer a basic ability, because it feels like you use it up every time. And this goes back to T1. They're trying to force something there. The idea is try and get Kana in, but you know this is coming. And the moment that Owner gets those trades on Chovy, you need to respect the lockdown potential of Camille. Camille can just hold you there for a short amount of time. And the moment that Kana uses Ultimate, I think as T1 you need to peace out there. I think you just say, okay guys, Maelstrom's gone, never mind. Let's just run, let them have the Drake, try and maybe get some control on top side. Because Hanwha Life's fights are just,
Are we double pogging Deft today?
Yeah,
is that what's happening?
Well, that's how I'm feeling right now, Atlas.
I'm
telling you that.
the same way. He's got a 2,000 gold lead right now, 2-0-4. Currently 100% kill participation. 8 kills in 21 minutes. It's pretty LCK of this. But this game has just been played beautifully by Hanwha, and it's off the back of their last game as well. And it's two very different compositions as well. I mean, this comp requires a lot more setup. The other one was far more chaos-centric, right? Whereas this one, you want to set up around objectives, get that poke to land, things like that, and then play around who you can pick off. And they've been doing it beautifully. Now they're going to start off the Baron as Deft, not actually seen here over the wall.
Owner's bot side. This is gone.
Yeah, no, this is a free Baron.
This is just...
Teleport going to come through here is Deft.
How do they know?
Spotted by Carrier. Vista is in the area. T1 do know what's going on.
It's just gone.
Carrier's Eclipse now on cooldown, and yeah, this is a real dead Baron. That's free.
Oh man, Hanwha Life. Hey, better late than never, Atlas. You know they were invited to the party, and everyone was like, oh, Hanwha, you know, they're these cool guys, Chovy and Deft, they're like the popular ones that you really want to pick
while
off.
the host is tidying up all the empty cans, Chronicler. That's not what you want.
But they're so cool. You got like, okay, well, we'll continue.
I'll get some Doritos out of the cupboard.
I have maybe 1 or 2 drinks left. You know, I was gonna go to bed. I have work tomorrow, but for you guys, I'll make an exception.
However, it's still throwable, of course. And also, if T1 do find one of these miracle engages, they still have an incredibly large cannon, right? We know that cannon can do some amazing things. Yes, Hanwha have a lot of tools.
Can do that?
But it's a possibility.
No? Okay. Too much?
No? What? No? Sorry, I didn't.
I don't want to repeat the joke because, like, I said it and then I regretted it. And now I'm not going to sell it back to you. I got away with it. It's the perfect crime.
Okay, beautiful. I'm glad that only everybody that was watching had to listen to it. I was actually completely immune. As nice. T1 now looking to try and get some defense working, and right now the Baron is not doing all that much as Hanwha Life Esports getting their waves in order. Got the Set and Camille in split push positions, and Deft is actually going to be pretty safe here in this 3 in the mid lane. In fact, the poke ability as well as the safety that Tahm Kench provides does create a lot of power in this 1-3-1.
It's insane. It's so hard to do anything for T1.
All right, well, there's a showstopper as Chovy's just tanking up the turret happily. Grabs himself a Haymaker onto Faker there. Almost forgot the name of the ability, but got there in the end.
This is not fun.
No, it's not. And actually, you know, We've spoken about Renekton Intercept before. The fact that you can break the Haymaker shield is really cool, but the way that Chovy's been playing around it, always using the Haymaker from range, as Guma gets taken down extraordinarily low. Deft has to get devoured though. Has a big shield as the curtain call. Vista's just going to stand in the front of it. And the grey health is going to mean that it barely registers. And look, the poke. It's registering. They're sending the members of T1 back, and this is huge. It creates man advantages and means that now this suffocation will continue. And it's not only these turrets getting sieged, it's the jungle being eliminated. It's Hanwha just continually extending their leads.
You're also denying T1's win condition, because T1 is looking to either find assassinations, which Vista has been very diligent about not making happen, as this Drake is certainly going to get taken. But you lose both sides, right? We see that Chovy can basically dive Faker. Like, Faker will stay alive, he can clear the waves, but that's also all he can do. If you look at the item disparity that is available there, with Chovy having 2.5 items and Faker sitting on like 1 and a little bit.
Yeah.
And Kana, he's fine clearing waves again, but like he's never going to be able to match the Camille. Hasn't even finished a second item yet, but once that comes through, that matchup in terms of 1v1 is also not really something that I think you're going to have a lot of pressure in, especially as Morgan is approaching level 16. And then what you want to do as T1 is fight, but Hanwha Life just not giving you the opportunity. You're standing there in mid lane, you're like, maybe we can collapse upon them, and then Deft hits 2 arrows. And then that's that. As this is a trap.
Yeah, they've set it up here onto Morgan. Let's see how well he navigates the situation.
Does he know?
Well, he now does, as the hook shot will come down, but he goes golden. There's the flash to get him over the wall. Owner now trying to chase after him. He gets himself a bit of a shield, but that is going to be the Camille going down. Pings now onto the inhibitor turret in the mid lane as T1. They're going to have to go back and quickly. They want to defend this, as Hanwha Life know that they do have a window to try and take this one down. Chains of Corruption go wide, as Willa getting some damage onto the turret, but it's not going to fall. So, success here for T1.
Oh, look at that ward. Look at that. Look at that control ward there. In the T1 jungle.
Possible flank options.
See some plays there, but it is a big risk with the Baron coming up relatively soon. Don't have to win. And they can just pick up a turret here, right? So you're going to feel happy regardless. And when we lost Vision, that was 2 people in that brush. By the time that Morgan actually got caught, it was 4 people. It was all another party being thrown. And Morgan was indeed there on time, although I think he didn't want to be. I think as nicely played as you can. So many ultimates being thrown out there as well. But there's no real response available. The only one who could possibly join that would have been Chovy, and him going by himself would not do a lot, so you try to get the most out of your pressure. As Hanwha, you are on the tail end of your Baron anyway, so not the end of the world. Yep. And shows us this is still winnable, right? Like, Hanwha Life still need to respect, and I think they've been doing a great job thus far. And for them, easy peasy. Hold on for a little bit. In 2.5 minutes, you pick up a Mountain Soul. Then you beat him peachy.
Yeah, Deft has a bit of a lead.
He does, doesn't he?
He's a big boy in this game. Guma, though, will still be relevant. Able to get these curtain calls from the back line, but did have to go for a bit of a rough build. Going for the armor penetration second is always a sign that you are not feeling like you are on the front foot. As these items do start to come in, the Jhin will still be rather scary, unless he's up against Chovy or Vista, I guess, because they are extremely tanky. Let's have a look at this. You can see Deft picking up loads of items. He's managed to collect 3 now, in comparison to just the 2 from Guma. He's got a pickaxe there, but not going to be writing home about that one, as piercing arrows really do hurt.
Yeah. Like I said, it's either a cannon flank or Owner, as he's been doing very diligently, might I add, is going to finish his Infinity Edge and is going to one-tap someone. But the problem that comes with that is that there are 2 stopwatches, a Zhonya's, what I assume will be a Guardian Angel, and also, you know, trying to 100-0 Camille is generally not the most fruitful of endeavors.
Indeed.
And a Devour, and an Exhaust. So that is, there's so many layers that you have to get through as T1. As you pointed out already, I don't think that comp skills exceptionally well. You can team fight, I think, no matter what, and you can win that way, but When it comes to 1v1, Hanwha Life have been the better party throughout the entirety of this game. Morgan can now get the shove in the on the bot side wave. Would like if they send someone to top, and it looks like Chovy is maybe thinking about that, but I think now it's Hanwha Life with 40 seconds on the clock. You want to just go invade the enemy bot side jungle, try and set up as much vision as you possibly can, and guarantee that T1 is at the very least going to have to eat some spears and or arrows if they want to try and contest this trade.
Indeed. Cute little Aegis built there by Chovy as well, as you can see. Nice mix of being tanky and also having a lot of damage threat as well with that Black Cleaver, which will help Def do a bunch more damage, not to mention the Camille also. T1 now trying to get into relative position as Chovy will be spotted there on that ward, but Def just in this pit. Setting up for all of this archery, finds another arrow. Will it land? No, it won't. Spears also going a little bit wide as Hanwha wanting to now start this one off. Chains of Corruption will go wide as Owner will lose half of his health bar afterwards. Hail of arrows coming in. Another spear is going to miss as Deft is going to take a bit of damage there. The Drake not as angry just yet as Chovy now looking to fight Faker. You can see it's a lot of damage out of this set as Faker is going to try and take the fight to him. Oh my goodness, Kerry is just dead. The showstopper lands onto Faker and Chovy is looking for this 1v1, finds the facebreaker, and he will just take down Faker now. Canna gets exhausted and just tries to lightning rush his way out, and Hanwha are still looking to chase, but they've taken 2 down. They should be able to take the Mountain Soul, and this game is really starting to blow away from T1.
The stakes are so big here, right? Because if T1 lose this, that means as a Gen G fan, you're ecstatic. Because if Gen G then finds the 2-0 over Nongshim in the next series, Gen G get a bye.
They're second. It's crazy.
It's insane. They're 5th at the moment.
Oh man. The swing will just be ludicrous as well as, yeah. This is the Pope. This is the danger. As Chovy as well, I mean, he's built for exactly this 1v1,
oh, yeah,
right?
You never win that. I mean, Faker's trying to set up, right? Like,
yeah,
he knows when he starts that either he's trying to zone Chovy, so the rest of his team can actually make a play, or they're looking for the collapse. Which, of course, collapsing on set, never the most relevant damage. But what do you do?
Yeah, while he decided to do that, Carrier just got popped from a million miles away.
Yeah.
And then he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, which is something that happens a lot here on the Mountain Rift. However, it's not what T1 wants. Chovy has now got the experience advantage. Morgan actually ahead of Canna now, and we are starting to see the pendulum swing in favor of this Camille. The cannon stock is really starting to fall. As Will throws that control ward outside of the brush. Makes me a little bit sad. These spears still raining down. And Hanwha now with a Mountain Soul. Oh, okay, that was a nice little dodge there from Canna.
Yeah, everyone was ready.
Yeah.
And the problem here is that technically, as T1, there's always going to be an opportunity, right? But like the actual layers that you have to go through to find a successful play requires so many successive mistakes from Hanwha Life that it feels very similar to last game. But in the last game, I think in the early game, they had a lot more footing here. Basically, ever since that initial fight in the Herald, didn't go amazing. And then there was the bot side play where they tried to go for the Infernal Drake at the time. And they just lost. And from that point on, they haven't had any control. Hanwha Life have been running them around the map, have been able to pick up a free Baron. Deft has just been... Yeah. This is all, like old lethality Varus. Like, I'm talking...
This is KT Deft lethality Varus when it wasn't meta, and he'd just bring it out and destroy people.
Yes.
This used to happen all the time, but now it's like a really meta pick, so we don't get to talk about Deft doing that anymore, but this used to be his wheelhouse. This is what he loved. And we used to talk about it, we're like, well, they won't have the consistent damage. Well, it doesn't matter if you always start the fight 5v3.
That's the tank.
Oh, yeah? Is it?
Oh, I mean, it's clearly not. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the tank is the guy with the Thorn Mail in that mid lane, as Chovy is very, very scary. And now Hanwha, they get to play around the Camille's push. They're now able to clear out all of the vision in this Baron pit.
Oh, goodbye.
Yeah, Canna.
Oh.
Okay, Morgan's going to cancel it.
I mean, it doesn't matter. If they go for him, they have to go in, otherwise kills
good stun.
Kana.
Hextech Ultimatum comes in immediately. It's the Zhonya's and the Slicing Maelstrom, but still don't know whether you win this. There's another hookshot comes through, doesn't get the stun. Tactical sweep misses, and the flash forward from Guma will secure the Camille. But now, There are two that are missing from this area. Showstopper comes on through and immediately the Graves is just dead. A little bit dangerous, but not able to get that smite off. And that means Will is able to secure the Baron. So it's 1-for-1, but Baron now circling once again on Hanwha Life. They've got themselves the Mountain Soul as well as Carrier. Yeah, slowed and will be taken out here. Gets the Zenith Blade, but it's a little bit sad in the end. Guma's going to get exhausted as Vista is just chasing after him. He's got the Devour. Can actually eat the Jhin if he wants to. As now Chovy's just underneath this turret, ignoring its potential damage, gets himself the shield from the Haymaker, and they break open the base. Canna is going to hold on to this minion wave, so at least they're not going to lose the game off this one. As with that zoom out, the back looked really, really cool. As this inhibitor not actually going to be taken, as Hanwha now move towards this inner turret on the top side of the map just to get as much gold as they possibly can. And this gold lead is really starting to get into danger territory. They already had a comp that was happy to scale, and they have just taken everything they wanted this game.
T1 have been dancing in the danger zone for like the last 2 games, right? Because the only reason why this works out is that it's a nice execution by Kana, who gets a lot of damage done. Morgan also not quite landing the hook shot flash there. And also Guma is there, because I think otherwise he might still lose, right? Like that is still
There were a lot of things that went right for Kennen, a few things that went wrong for Morgan. I think the late flash was a little bit sad, but he still does his job. Like, this is exactly what you need.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, Morgan knows the moment that he cancels his back there, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to roll tension.
Well, as soon as he dies to Jhin as well, he's like, all right, guys, you can go, 4v3.
I'm going to be, I don't know if the Jhin is there. That's the sad part, right?
Oh,
no. As we can see here, doesn't quite get gobbled, as he does have to invest his own flash. But it's Hanwha Life. You can't walk up. You can't fight them. What can you do?
I have absolutely no idea. Well, the Showstopper's going to come. Oh my goodness! What happened to him? He exploded. The Jhin just popped. Oh no. As Faker, he's going to pop the Dominus, looking to try and keep a hold of his Nexus turret. Canna also just explodes, and Hanwha Life Esports, they've hit critical mass, and T1 can do nothing about it. The piercing arrows are raining down Carrier. I don't know where he was walking, but honestly, it did not matter, as Hanwha Life will do what none of us expected and get the 2-0. Over T1. They've done this before. Hanwha Life Esports upsetting T1 is not a thing that we have not seen, but it wasn't what we were expecting today, but it's a beautiful sight for a lot of the Hanwha Life Esports fans.
Of course they get the 2-0 Atlas. Business as usual in the LCK.
It is known, Chronicler. It is known.
I don't really have an appropriate response to this. I gotta admit, it's
a bittersweet win. It's a bittersweet win for Hanwha Life Esports, and it is a rough loss.
It is. Yeah, let's go into Hanwha first, because for Hanwha, this is of course not their final game of the split. I think.
I mean, it is.
Well, for the regular
not
split.
For the
year,
year,
thank
right?
you.
Yeah.
So for them, I think a match like this, it reinstills confidence that they had clearly been lacking for the entire split. The team looked directionless, and while individually, the players, of course, with Chovy and Deft on the forefront, had looked okay to great at times, nothing really came together. And to then get a decisive win with great shot calling and lovely fights over a team like T1, yeah, Deft, you did it. He deserves it. Is beautiful. And then for T1, the exact opposite of what is going to happen. T1, 2 weeks ago, looking like one of the front runners, right? Together with Kia, looking revitalized, looking incredibly strong in terms of early game, and it just all falls apart here today.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it came down to the drafting. I thought that T1 were a lot weaker in that department
I agree.
today, but I want to talk about how well Hanwha Life Esports drafted. So how many times have we seen set pick and then Hanwha Life have 0 damage? Not have a cohesive composition that has a direction moving later into the game. That happens all the time, and these were the first 2 picks, and I saw it and I was like, oh dear, well, here we go. It's another one of these games. But this was a comp just built around having this set in the mid lane as an immovable object, also able to be used in those side lanes as well, given the fact that if you bring Graves or Renekton, I mean, does Set care? No, he's got a Thornmail. He's got his... Everything about this set is built to stop that from being a problem. And they had so much poke damage, so much safety for their Varus. Like, This was a beautifully crafted team composition from Harmolife Esports, which is something that we haven't seen all that much of this season.
And something that I love is that a lot of what we saw here today are moments we've seen from Hanwha Life. Deft looking good is not something new to the split. Hanwha Life going for like a cool draft angle, right? And I think the second game was like, it was fairly straightforward, but the first one in particular was like, ooh, some fun stuff happening. Yeah. And then, of course, Chovy and Def just performing on general, but then Wheeler wouldn't really get it together, or Morgan would die a couple of times in late. None of that, everything just came together. Everything just lined up beautifully. Hanwha Life outplayed them basically from draft, and even within the games, found themselves early game leads, snowballed team fights, played the map way better. Just a very deserved sweep.
Yep, absolutely beautiful stuff. And now, do you know what happens, ladies and gentlemen? In our next series, the two teams that are playing are going to be playing for a round 1 bye. Either if it's a Nongshim win, they claim first place. If it's a Genji 2-0, they claim second place, and Nongshim don't get their round 1 bye at all. And Genji will be just under Damwon Kia. It's like almost every outcome has a different implication.
Insane.
And how many times this happened?
The final game of the split!
It's perfect. This is exactly what we wanted to see. Oh my goodness, not this series. This series was not what anyone expected. I don't really necessarily know what to take away from it, so I'm going to try not to think about it too much and try and look towards the future, right? Because T1's still in the playoffs. They still have a chance to show what they're capable of in the best of 5s, which I think are the far more important matches to look forward to. And they're not going to have to worry about too much. They just have to focus on that first game, as we will see how things shake out, because we still don't necessarily know where T1 are going to be placed. They're going to be ahead of both Sandbox and Freaka, but where everybody else goes, we have absolutely no idea. As if Genji and T1 tie on game score, Genji, I believe, has the head-to-head, and therefore they won't be able to get ahead of them. As we are going to go into the highlights and watch what Harmolife Esports did to T1 this game. And what T1 did to Chovy in particular.
And it all starts with the errors that come through here, right? Where the lockdown on Kana, him not being able to actually convert the huge gold lead that they found into meaningful damage in this team fight. No actual backline threat. And this is where he starts hitting arrows, and he never really stops. They just keep hitting, and this is another one of the key mistakes that T1 have made. Is like, you know that Chovy is on his way, right? Like, you should be ready for this. And I think that T1 were expecting a very different Hanwha Life than what showed up here today, and I can't fault them because this is legit. And yes, Hanwha Life has one more series, but this is the best they've looked the entire. Like, I don't.
Hey, it may not be one more series.
Sorry,
it's a gauntlet. If they win, they're gonna have to keep playing.
No, I know, but like, I mean, like what we've seen from them in the regular split up until now, right? During summer is because I think they've won, but I've never felt like this is the Hanwha of Spring in their best, right? And even the Hanwha of Spring, they had some ups and downs. It wasn't always this clean. But when they looked clean, and it wasn't just Chovy 1v9ing on Akali or Yone, this was how the team looked. And it's great to see them back.
It absolutely is. And this is also with, you know, different junglers as well. Remember, it was Arthur and Johan, and this was Willer actually having a really good game. Morgan, this was a little bit unfortunate for him, that spotting the fact that there are 2 people down there means that Harmolife Esports just make the perfect macro play in this situation. And that is another thing that was absolutely lacking from this team. As Chovy bringing like a special delivery on the jungler into the Baron pit when it was very close to smiteable is a little bit dangerous. However, they do navigate it pretty nicely. And then T1, not really a whole lot they could do about it. Felt like they were circling the drain pretty early on in this series. Sorry, in this particular game. We'll have a listen. to Harmolife.
야, 끝낼 생각하자. 끝낼 생각하자.
헬 타줄게. 나 봐줘봐. 봐봐.
Not a lot to be done. Unfortunately,
팬은 어차피 탈수 있어.
at this point in time, right, the game was lost on those 2 fights. One on the bot side, one on the top side, and
아래 타워부터.
the big difference between this current Hanwha Life that we saw it today is mainly that they actually deliver on the lead that they found.
얘도 죽여 그냥. 나 공 5초. 나 공 돌면 공포랑 볼게. 기다려봐. 깨지 마봐. 오케이. 나 찾았다. 기다려. 이거
Get the Nexus. Wait.
야, 상점권이다.
아 이겨 그냥.
깨줘
나이스. 아 1레드 너무 못했네. 네 미안해.
괜찮아.
잘했다 다.
Some smiles, some sorries, but not exactly losing their minds at the end of that one, of course. Bit bittersweet for Harmalife Esports, who will not be competing in the playoffs. 30,000 damage for Def is definitely very, very dangerous. And man, just impressive stuff here for Hanwha. This is not the position I was expecting to be in.
No. And it makes our playoffs even more, I don't know.
Let's have a look at the depth of the game, shall we? There we go.
Shocker.
4-0-9. I'm blown away by the fact that this.
Honestly, Chovy Rob.
Yeah, I know. It's always Chovy Rob. Hopefully he did manage to get a few votes, as 800 DPM is not too bad. 40% of the damage is absolutely what you want. He missed a lot of ults, but hit a lot of arrows.
This ult right there. I can't get over this one.
Yeah. I mean, Kano is just not allowed to play League of Legends this game, but we did illustrate that it was going to be a very difficult game for him.
It was, yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the draft, because T1 also had a draft that didn't give him a lot of opportunities. We've already talked about how you are gonna have to cannon the cannon ahead. That part works out okay, but then the actual execution was, yes, it wasn't great, but also because it was basically impossible. There was so many ways of dealing with this cannon. As I respect that. Willer had an amazing game as well, and I think Willer is also in the unenviable position of being a Hanwha Life jungler who have just been
that's very true.
Continuously swapped around.
Yeah, it's been a difficult time. However, we are going to go to the Deft interview, so here is Jisun for some translation.
Thank you very much, guys. This is Jisun with the interview translation, joined by the solo POG Deft. Congratulations, Deft, on winning the final match of the split. There were a lot of matches that we could have won, but we performed so bad that we lost. I mean, like, it's a bummer that we didn't make it to the playoffs, but we still have a hope for the Immortals qualifiers. And until then, we will try to hold on to the opportunity that we have in our hands. And it's been so long since you guys played against T1. What kind of mindset did you bring to today's series? We didn't really bring something new or something new that we prepared. During the practice, we kind of realized that we have some issues with the coordinations. We had a lot of communications and discussions, and in that process, I guess a lot of players kind of let some of the burdens away, and also I think we had some new mindset to keep in mind. And I guess that feedback and communication worked so well for you guys. And Hanwha Life Esports has been prioritizing Ashe a lot nowadays. Last time, you did win lane, but heading into the team fight stage or the team play stage, we couldn't really see the best value out of a fed Ashe, but this time around, you did manage to show off your power. Is that because of a difference in the support pick? I think we had better comp in general, and also, we also knew we are having a lot more edge over the opponent's comp this time around, and we did not have a lot of accidents in the early game, which allowed us to transition the early lead easily. In today's series, I think we saw a huge confidence from you on Ashe and Varus. Are you satisfied with your performance today? Yeah, because I didn't die. Also very important factor and an aspect as an AD carry player. In game number 1, the game was going back and forth, but with your outplay, Hanwha Life Esports grabbed the momentum. How did you kind of see the whole angle to open a team fight? Viego went over the wall too early, so we were able to get a kill on him. And then later on, I think T1 didn't really have a hang of how Ash and Lulu can perform, because if you walk into their range, they can chase you down forever. So it was very easy for us to play out this team fight. Yeah, because Hololive actually did have a lot of options for the support and AD carry. Trundle is a difficult champ to deal with, but with Lulu added to the lane, you can actually relieve those kind of stress.
그렇죠. 룰루도 이제 룰루지만 오늘 또 12연패 중이던 세트.
And also Seth was able to end his losing streak here in the LCK. About 12 games so far. How do you guys rate this champion currently? I think in the Renekton versus Seth matchup, looks pretty hard for Seth, but Jovi was confident in both sides of the matchup. So you did have Renekton Nidalee open, and then you let Renekton through and countered it with Seth Nidalee. Was that something you guys prepared in terms of the matchup? Yeah, before the pick and ban, we did have some plans for the draft, and also in game we were able to execute correctly. In game 2, your Varus together with Wheeler's Nidalee showed a great amount of poke damage. Wheeler is the relatively new player on the roster. Anything you would like to talk about him? He's really good at skirmishes. In the previous series, well, we were not having the best energy and atmosphere.